All right, check out Atlas doing the backflip, but then, kind of tearing an ACL is what it feels like there. Maybe not the most impressive backflip, but something about the way it caught itself. It's worth talking about. I have some thoughts on this little device and how it might lead to all sorts of interesting innovations in the future, like shoes, gloves, helmets. Like, just imagine what that could be. Not necessarily a better future, but just a future with some products that some people will want to buy to escape with. Not exactly breaking news, but first time I found out that these things existed, these giant wind turbines. Have you seen what China's doing? Dude, look at that thing. Imagine driving down the street knowing that's bringing power. So we'll talk about skies versus tunnels, what the future might look like. Generating electricity, dropping off packages, all that stuff. We'll check out this article, God is in Code, how a cognitive scientist proved the world is an illusion, why that changes everything. Find out what happens when you hand $100 to ChatGPT to trade stocks for you. So this is an 8 weeks hands-off investing saga, I guess we'll say. We'll show you where it ended up. There's a really great conversation between some really smart people about the future, but also the transition. So we're going to look at the AI revolution, how it's here, and we're going to see, will the economy survive that transition? There's some scientists working on what they call the periodic table for artificial intelligence. It actually kind of makes sense. So I wanted to throw this on your radar because when you have all of these different models with different kind of capabilities, you also sort of want ingredients that you could put together in the soup of your choice. So yeah, it kind of makes sense to do some of this. First time I've heard about it. New research shows that the personality trait that you inherited actually influences the way that you flirt. And sure, it's one thing for the researchers at the University of Alabama to survey 955 participants about their flirting habits, but it's another when they don't even take their word for it and they ask, quote, informants in the research, which are really just like friends or acquaintances who spilled the tea. We're going to look at the intensifying collapse of trust online with major news events stirring more confusion than ever before. You know, something worth knowing about, thinking about. The BBC's got a really interesting article called The Red Pixel in the Snow. It's how AI solved the mystery of a missing mountaineer. We'll look at Rob Mason's thoughts on the value of friction, why the world moving so fast doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some kind of pushback to where it's going. Just because it's going fast, it's not an excuse. And finally, we'll leave on a way to actually lower stress. So stress levels stopped, optimism rose, sleep improved, all from one simple act: gratitude. I know, it's crazy, but I guess the brain really can't tell the difference between having good things and focusing on good things. Your attention literally creates your emotional reality, so we should use that, you know? But first, if you don't mind pressing the hype button here on YouTube, I'm hoping to get maybe up to 200,000 hype points, which is about maybe 200, maybe 210 actual hype button presses. And also check that out, coming up on 30,000 subscribers. Do you think I'll get to 30,000 subscribers? All right, let's start with the backflips. You know, we've seen robots do backflips before. Arguably, even some of the Chinese models are doing better than this. But the fact that it corrected itself, and it seems like a piece maybe broke off. I can't quite identify it. I think it's the top of the foot or something. Something goes like flying out from it. But the fact that it corrected itself in a way that was so unhuman, but it's almost a human backflip, except it can swing a leg around and catch itself in a way that a human like hip spine ACL just can't, like, broke my brain. And it just got me thinking, in the movie I, Robot, if you ever remember the way those robots were portrayed, they're like climbing wall, they're all like Spider-Man and stuff, like jumping super high and so smooth and so flexible and so human. And I kind of remember thinking they took like almost too much liberty with it. I was like, nah, robots are like heavy, like they're gonna have different form factors. They won't just be like superhuman in the way that they move. But I'm starting to kind of think like, why would I have thought that, right? Like the material science is getting there. The materials will get lighter and lighter and lighter. AI will come up with something better than carbon fiber. They'll find something that feels like a ligament if humans really want a human form factor. And then, yeah, in simulation, they'll build something that is like a muscle, but it springs faster. It has more resilience. It does everything humans do in almost the same form factor, trained, and then is just way better. Like, I just gotta remember there probably will be almost indistinguishable human Spider-Man type things, and then in other cases we'll go a route where things just look crazy like this, like, oh my god, it fell over, but no, its arm is also now its leg and it can just bend in crazy ways. Okay, this is okay, right? It's like if you need a pen and you're moving some 3D object and you kind of want to look at the screen and get the right resistance for drawing or pushing, I see why this product would exist and why it might appeal to someone. But more importantly, the fact that it can have these sub-millisecond connections between the physical device and the universe inside the machine, the 3D world, that the environment that it's in with the, fake physics or the physics simulations that are running, and then have that force feedback, got me thinking that this is the beginning of like something else. Like, why wouldn't in the future when the technology gets there, a device becomes in existence where you put your feet in some shoes, but the shoes have these kind of connections, like the same way this pen does right here, and maybe gloves, maybe helmet, maybe something around the waist. And now all of a sudden you're pushing on things, you're touching things, you're grabbing things, you're lifting things. Imagine you lift sort of like a heavy rock or whatever, right? And you lift that up in VR, but these things are pulling on your gloves in just the right way. And then maybe you push here and like that little rivet or whatever that I'm touching. I don't know. I was like, this is... But then also, what is that? That feels like the Matrix. So you like sitting in some kind of capsule, and then like you're like free to move if you want. But then as soon as you hit a wall, it like stops. So you think you're in a room, and then what if you fall asleep in that thing and wake up and you don't even know what reality you're in anymore? I mean, I'm sure that's not how they're gonna like pitch. That's not how the pitch deck's gonna look to investors. But like we all know that's coming. So let's talk about the skies of the future. This is a way to get supposedly a gigawatt of power from the sky. So similar to how you would set up a wind turbine, except it just floats. I guess it's less of an eyesore because it doesn't ruin like the mountain landscape or the ocean view. But then again, it's like a sky blocker. I don't know. I mean, like we need power really bad to keep up with trillions of dollars of compute we're trying to get down every single year in this country. Maybe something like this will happen. But then it also got me thinking about what the future of the sky looks like. Is there going to be some level, maybe like 10 feet, nothing can fly, right? And then drones and package deliveries are like 10 to 20 feet or something. And then there'd be like police or military cameras and drones, like another 5 feet above that. And then maybe things that pull power out of the sky are a little bit above that. I mean, I guess there's tunnels and stuff too for robots to transport. So maybe we go the tunnel route if Elon's right about the Boring Company and all of that. But I just hope in the future we don't have to like go find a certain spot just to look up at the sky, Guess we'll always have parks and stuff. But yeah, anyways, this could be how your neighborhood is. I mean, in one sense, if this was like powering my neighborhood, I guess that'd be good. It's like not totally dependent on like a national grid that could go down. We'd have some sort of ability to maintain our own power. So yeah, it could be, maybe individual power plants or these sky power plants could be powering servers and big data centers that are sort of out in the middle of nowhere. And, wind power is fairly clean. I do like that there's not carbon going up in the air from it. So yeah, I don't know. Thoughts? Let me know. I mean, emergency power and disaster zones feels like a good use for that. All right, let's check out this article. God is in the Code, how a cognitive scientist proved the world is an illusion. Is it? Is this proof that we should listen to? Let's see what Anton McCall has to say. So this piece is kind of trying to explain what cognitive scientist David Hoffman is saying with his radical idea that what we perceive as reality isn't truth, right? But it's a survival interface shaped by evolution. Now, this kind of makes sense to me, right? Like evolution didn't try to get accurate. It tried to pass on its genes and like be more fit for the environment. And definitely there's a ton of examples where the person who's fittest for the environment isn't always aware of everything. They're sort of aware of what works. And then they don't, and they can be blindsided, right? And then sometimes the environment changes and they don't do well, but there's certainly people who have been like, okay, being extra confident for a little while will work, and then they just keep using that tool their whole life, and then they're around the wrong people and it doesn't work anymore, right? Evolution's got that same kind of issue. But he's likening it more to how the graphical user interface hides the computer's code, right? Like both of us are looking at screens right now, but realistically, it's because it would be of no interest and make no sense to us to actually stare at a microchip and have electricity moving around that, we can't, even if we could zoom in enough to see the actual electricity, like we can't figure out what it's trying to do. It's not going to be interesting. So seeing the objective reality of what makes this YouTube video play for you is costly. It's unnecessary for survival. And, you're not incentivized to do it. But on a higher level, maybe this video is interesting to you. So Hoffman's fitness beats truth theorem suggests that our sense of present is a simplified VR-like world, not the real one. It echoes ancient spiritual teachings like the Mayan illusions. Propose that the fundamental reality that we're in is actually a network of conscious agents. So not just like a single one. And then finally, the article talks about practices like meditation, sort of stepping back from your moment, noticing all the things that you don't normally notice, because that does, to some degree, give you a better truth, a better awareness of the reality around you. Because if you just say everything that pops into your head the second you do, you never step back and think about why. You just take the next action that seems instinctive. You don't step back and think about what that leads to. Then you're suffering from more of an illusion than somebody who's meditating. The table you touch, the people you see, even your own body, it might just be a kind of adaptive interface, not the true fabric of existence. All right, now let's go make some money. So this is an interesting article. If you're planning to get rich, on how ChatGPT can help you. So we're going to learn what 8 weeks of hands-off investing actually revealed. First off, ChatGPT isn't a trading bot. It's not built to connect to your Robinhood or tell you which stocks will blow up. But it can analyze trends, interpret financial news, break down earnings reports, spot potential biases in data, and recommend diversified strategies. Also, I have a friend that's using it more for kind of like ethical investing, and it is pretty good at looking into a company and saying, hey, does the product they make actually fit the certain ethical standards that you have or not? Because that's not an easy thing it's kind of an impossible thing to figure out if you're just walking down a grocery store aisle. But in this case, the AI was guiding the portfolio strategy, and it actually did seem to work. I mean, you could call it statistically significant. It outperformed the broader market. It grew by about 29%, while the S&P overall in the same time frame only rose about 4%. So that's pretty neat. Now, the experiment didn't make ChatGPT a magic trader. It showed that structured AI-assisted reasoning can help generate higher returns when used correctly. This is an N of 1. It's not a crystal ball. It's not anything other than a powerful research tool, a non-emotional ear to bounce ideas off of. And those two things alone do help, ChatGPT be a tool that helps filter good information, maintains discipline, and it generates reasons and ideas fast enough that you can iterate probably beyond what you normally would without it. He points out a couple interesting things. ChatGPT didn't panic when things were going bad, but the author did. And it reminded him that most of us lose money not because we pick bad stocks, but because we let fear and greed make decisions. Systems beat spontaneity. You don't need to be a pro to start. An AI is a tool, not a cheat code. Would he do it again? Absolutely. But with best tracking, clear timeframes, and maybe a bit more risk next time. Not financial advice, actually a woman named Tamima Chai. She's the one that did all these experiments. She's the one that wrote this article. And yeah, very fascinating. Check her out on Medium. All right, next let's break down this conversation. I won't even call it an article because this is a conversation about the AI revolution and how the economy will transition. Michael Burry, Dwarkesh Patel, Patrick McKenzie, and Jack Clark. All having a conversation here. I'll give you the TLDR on it. So Michael Burry famously predicted the 2008 crash. The housing market became super rich. AI leaders like Jack Clark are in this conversation. And they're tracing how AI advanced from early research to today's powerful large language models. And note that while capabilities have exploded, economic impact is still unclear. Some of the conversation revolved around whether or not AI tools genuinely boost productivity. And I think about that a lot too. Sometimes I spend so much time learning a tool and then I generate something and I don't know if it's useful. It's like cool and amazing and I'm wowed, but do I need it? But there are some places, especially like research wise, where it's just like clearly helping me, and it's helping me in so much volume that I would never get to that kind of information or be that thorough. I just don't have the brain or energy for it. So I think it genuinely boosts quality for me right now. And productivity, especially in the physical world, is still a bit off. And even right now, forcing people to kind of like learn it's taking away from their current productivity. So I almost feel like it's a wash in many cases. And they kind of touch on that, like why some of the younger workers aren't really seeing the benefits yet. Like they're having to learn it, but it's more kind of future oriented than it is for today's employers. There's there's thoughts on which companies will win the AI race. In my opinion, it's going to be Google, but there's good arguments for many other companies. Argue whether the huge investments flowing into AI infrastructure are going to translate into real economic growth, or is it just going to be like the benefit of a few stocks, or is it going to be sunk costs? Different thoughts on those. I tend to think it's worth it. I feel it's crazy. As much as I sort of complain about trillions of dollars and like these few people, these kind of oligarchs running the world, also I think there will be benefit in the long run. It's definitely a long game that everybody's playing here, but I don't know, exponentially changing intelligence just feels like something, even if there's lots of hiccups and it goes much slower than I expect or I think it's going to, I do think we eventually get there. I mean, 100 years, like, where do you think we're at in 100 years? 50 years? Like, we're usually talking 5, 10, 15, 20 time frames. But even if you want to slow that down a lot, I think it's still coming. That's why I was kind of a doomer, or I think I'm a doomer kind of, but I'm just like, can't we just slow down? Like, I think there's so much benefit here. We could all like, us and our children could like live forever. We could probably be super young. We can probably have all the abundance of food and pleasure and conversations that we want if we just don't like rush into it trying to build weapons so the other guy doesn't get AI weapons before us and then end up with a messed up world, but it's a coordination problem. It's not really even a technology problem. That's the scariest part about all this. Like, you kind of need everyone on Earth to realize the same thing about how powerful it is and then make the same long-term decision, not based on individual interests, which is just not how capitalism or anything else has benefited the world before. So it's kind of a monumental ask. Next up, let's talk about a periodic table for AI. So in the similar in spirit to the chemical periodic table or a list of ingredients for a cook, somebody like a chef, instead of elements like hydrogen or gold, AI tables can be categorized into different AI algorithms based on how they handle and compress information. All right, so especially in a multimodal system where you're like audio, video, text, we need a framework, because with a framework, now that the AI could actually learn what ingredients to put together to build certain tools, which would have certain solutions. So it's just a little bit easier than everybody sort of going about everything on their own, right? We need a new layer underneath AI where people can just say, oh, there's patterns here in the way that all these different trained models have learned similar representations of the world. So why don't we unify them into some kind of, some kind of a cluster, right? And that's the periodic table. So there's an approach, this mathematical approach, it's beyond me, but it's called variational multivariate information bottlenecking. When you use that technique, you can group all the models that are out there in different ways. And that's what they're using to build this periodic table. So I mean, that just helps researchers, maybe AIs in the future, choose the right algorithms for a specific task, design better ones, understand AI systems more deeply. And of course, the more we understand these systems, the more predictable they become, the safer we are. So I am just in favor of all the little adjacent things to AI safety like this. So I did not realize this before, but it turns out new research is showing that personality traits, the ones we're inherited with, they significantly shape why and how people flirt with each other. I know, isn't that crazy? But individuals with dark personality traits like narcissism and psychopathy, they're more likely to flirt as a strategic tool to gain something. So be careful out there. They're flirting for things like career perks, free drinks, you name it, rather than for genuine romantic connection. So beware. But on the plus side, people with light traits, such as humanism or strong faith in humanity, they tend to flirt less for instrumental gain and more for sincere connection. But even though personality traits can help improve predictions about why people flirt, the environment has a bigger influence on whether they flirt to form genuine connection than their personalities. So, it's not that bad. But yeah, I always just thought flirting was a romantic signal, but no, it functions as a tactical social strategy shaped by personality. So it's been like a surprisingly big couple weeks in the news. I don't know why. The United States is just like involved with everything right now, but it is what it is. And Iran's on the map, like Cuba's on the map. Venice. I think the think the U.S. like took over Venezuela, it might own it or something now, or at least took the oil. So I don't know. But in an NBC News report, experts were kind of breaking down why artificial intelligence, especially AI-generated deepfakes, are accelerating the breakdown of trust online. They make it harder for people to know what's real and what's not. That's probably beneficial for people in power who don't really need too much of the truth out there. So I don't know, just like a warning, just be aware that this is happening so we don't just instantly think, oh, this is like exactly the narrative. Because especially after major events, like these big news events, chaotic situations unfolding in Venezuela, social media feeds that were studied showed like so many AI generated images. Like there were altered video, there was recycled footage that looked real, but it was from the wrong time. It was augmented sometimes with AI. There were captions that implied the wrong thing from what the photo's like accurate moment was. There's this weird mix of like synthetic visual spreading of unreliable information at the moment, and I kind of thought it would be more obvious when this was happening, but yeah, it's very suspicious. I mean, like you guys know, I've covered some videos on this channel that I thought were real, that were fake, and you guys got at me in the comments, and you should have. I don't know. Like none of us know, right? And I hate to just be skeptical of everything because I want to have trust in some people, but yeah, we have to just think very carefully about if we're, or you know what, maybe it's more like if you're taking the information in your own head, don't just think this is guaranteed to be a fact. Just think of like, okay, like there's stuff that people say things they don't mean, like some of these articles aren't real. Some of them are, like, who's this person? What's their intention? Like, why are they telling me this? And just step back from that fact, I guess, and think about the incentives for whatever you're seeing or believing, and that might give you a clue into whether it's aligned with your best interest or not. All right, next let's talk about a BBC Future story. It was called How AI Solved the Mystery of the Missing Mountaineer. This is interesting to me, kind of another one of those like superhuman moments from AI. So September 2024, there's this experienced Italian climber. He disappears on the rugged north face of the Alps. Now, this triggered a search that ground to a halt after bad weather and dangerous terrain made progress impossible. Nearly a year later, in July of 2025, the Mountain Rescue Survey deployed an AI-assisted drone that captured thousands of high-resolution images of the area. And once they got all of those photos, AI analyzed those images, and in less than an hour, like a task that would have taken a human hundreds of weeks, it flagged an unusual cluster of bright red pixels in the snow. And that tiny clue turned out to actually be the helmet of the missing person. That enabled rescuers to locate and recover his body on the steep slope. And it illustrates how AI image analysis tools can dramatically accelerate and enhance search and rescue efforts in more remote and dangerous environments. Yeah, sometimes I think about not just search and rescue and like tracking people and normal privacy stuff, but also just how history is going to get rewritten. I think that it's hard for a normal person to just look at a mountain range and see what that is on a geological time frame. Like what does this mean if I see this, but I think about billions of years of like rocks pushing into each other, like how many animals like existed on this mountain, and like what was their impact on the different geological levels and stuff like that. So yeah, just AI being able to think in ways where it would take lifetimes of humans to just sit there and record things before a pattern emerged is just like fascinating. So next up, let's talk about the value of friction. This is just such a good metaphor, I think, for the pushback that citizens kind of need. Just a reasonable amount, do it in the right way. But when people just say things, I don't know if it's okay to just be like, okay, like just moving on. Like, oh, I saw a bad thing over there. Like, I don't want to get involved. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a lesson for me too, but it's so almost like annoying in this world that what would have been something that you should have been held accountable for in the past is just like, I don't know. Who knows if it's real? Could be worse. Like, just move on. And it's because we're all face down. We're all like have 1,000 things to do. We need to make money to survive. We're busy. We can't focus. Maybe AI can like step back and make some of these systematic changes that humans are going to get like worse and worse at as the systems become more and more complicated. But anyways, back to Rob Mason's article. He argues that while eliminating annoying unnecessary resistance or friction in our tools and systems often feels like progress, there's a deeper kind of friction that teaches us where the world is, how it shapes our capabilities to engage with reality, and why we need it. So when digital interfaces become too smooth, anticipating our questions, pre-smoothing uncertainty, like TikTok basically just automatically gives you what you want. We avoid all awkward pauses where people can actually think. It sort of numbs us to the essential signals about other people's minds, their constraints, the boundaries between the self and the world, helps us have a sense of self in the long run. And Mason even suggests that the pushback of real limitations, hesitation, ambiguity, rejection, effort, this all provides important information to develop properly. So frictionless systems are really not optimized systems, even though it feels like it. They're not optimized for our best interest. But of course, he says it's tempting to just say friction is good, comfort is bad, but he doesn't buy that story either. So like all good, interesting things, the devil's in the details. And I think this frames it up the best. Like, if it's frictionless or there's friction, ask yourself who's choosing it and what are their incentives, because that's the key. If you really care about someone, you sort of want them to have the right kind of friction that they grow from, and you don't want them to have the wrong kind of friction that just holds them down, and that's just such a more complex question that is only suited towards that moment for the most part and that product. All right, but I'll leave you with this. Your attention literally creates your emotional reality. I guess I've said this before. I could probably write this down, but I don't always believe and think this way, and that's something I'm going to be trying to work on this week. So the brain really can't tell the difference between having good things and focusing on good things, according to science. So sitting there writing gratitude journals, just taking a moment right after this video to, I guess, be thankful for whatever's around you. If you're healthy, be like, wow, it's a miracle that my body keeps its health together. If you're not healthy, but you have money, be like, thank God I have resources to have people to care about me. And if you have neither of those, but you have someone that loves you, think about how important it is to not be alone in this world and have somebody there. And don't just say it, feel it, think it, know it, understand that many, many other people on earth don't have what we have. Many generations before us didn't have the opportunities we have or the tools we have or the knowledge that we have, and just let it be, I'm okay. I don't know everything about the risks of the future, but I'm okay. I'm okay right now. Your attention literally creates your emotional reality. And what's the benefit of just being stressed out? That's why two people can live the same life and one feels blessed while the other feels cursed. The difference isn't luck, it's focus. Don't need more to be happy. You just need to notice more. Gratitude doesn't change your life overnight. It changes the way you see your life, and that changes everything. Hit that hype button. If you're not subscribed, I'd love to get to 30,000 soon, and I appreciate you watching this video. That's what I'm thankful for right now. You actually made it all the way through my video. You listen to all my thoughts. Not a lot of people get to actually speak their mind and have somebody pay attention to it. So now it's your turn. If you want to say something in the comments, I'll check it out. But I need to be grateful for all of you. See you in the next video.